Welcome back to another episode of Revealing Biblical Truths. In this video, I'll go through the Book of Enoch and provide evidence of supporting biblical cosmology. But first, I want to discuss the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch has been dated to at least 300 BC, and it was well known by Yahusha as well as the disciples who referred to it and quoted directly from it. That alone should give us reason to lend credibility to the book. In addition, the book was in Ethiopic canon of Scripture as well as the original King James canon. It was also found among the caves of Qumran in the Dead Sea Scrolls in 3 languages. Most importantly, the Book of Enoch contains many verses that back up the Bible, as well as prophecies about the Son of Man, detailed information about the flood, the Watchers, and biblical cosmology. I believe it's an inspired book and one that everyone should read. For this study, however, let's begin by looking at the book of the courses of heavenly luminaries and the sun and the moon and the stars. Enoch chapter 18 verses 2 through 7. I surveyed a stone which supports the corners of the earth. I also beheld the 4 winds which bear up the earth, and the firmament of heaven, and I beheld the winds occupying the exalted sky, arising in the midst of heaven and of earth, and constituting the pillars of heaven. I saw the winds which turned the sky, which caused the orb of the sun and all of the stars to set. And over the earth I saw the winds which support the clouds. I saw the path of the angels. So the winds actually support the earth, the firmament, and also move the luminaries in their paths. Enoch 18 verses 14 through 16. And there I beheld 7 stars, like great blazing mountains, and like spirits entreating me. Then the angel said, This place, until the consummation of heaven and earth, will be the prison of the stars, and the host of heaven. The stars which roll over fire are those which transgressed the commandment of God before their time had arrived. For they came not in their proper season, therefore he was offended with them, and bound them, until the period of the consummation of their crimes in the secret year. So these stars who transgressed are the wandering stars, what we call the 7 planets. Chapter 41. I beheld also the receptacles of the moon, whence the moons came, whither they proceeded, their glorious return, and how one became more splendid than the other. I marked their rich progress, their unchangeable progress, their disunited and undiminished progress, their observance of a mutual fidelity by a stable oath, their proceeding forth before the sun, and their adherence to the path allotted them, in obedience to the command of the Lord of spirits. Potent is his name forever and ever. After this I perceived that the path both concealed and manifest of the moon, as well as the progress of its path, was there completed by day and by night, while each, one with another, looked towards this Lord of spirits, magnifying and praising without cessation, since praise to them is rest. For in the splendid sun there is a frequent conversion to the blessing and to malediction. So according to this, there is more than one moon, and they are different. Perhaps this relates to the eclipses and how Rahu and Ketu fit in. In this passage from chapter 53, it talks about the flood of Noah. In those days shall punishment go forth from the Lord of spirits, and the receptacles of water which are above the heavens shall be opened, and the fountains likewise which are under the heavens and under the earth. All the waters which are in the heavens and above them shall be mixed together. The water which is above the heavens shall be the agent, and the water which is under the earth shall be the recipient, and all shall be destroyed who dwell upon the earth, and who dwell under the extremities of heaven. Again, this is reaffirmed in what Genesis 1 is saying about there being waters above the firmament. Let's look at the courses of the heavenly luminaries. This first chapter deals with the sun. The book of the revolutions of the luminaries of heaven, according to their respective classes, their respective powers, their respective periods, their respective names, the places which they commenced their progress, and their respective months, which Uriel, the holy angel who was with me, explained to me, he who conducts them. The whole account of them, according to every year of the world forever, until a new work shall be effected, which shall be eternal. This is the first law of the luminaries. The sun and the light arrive at the gates of heaven, which are on the east, and on the west of it, at the western gates of heaven. I beheld the gates whence the sun goes forth, and the gates wherein the sun sets, in which gates also the moon rises and sets, and I beheld the conductors of the stars, among those who precede them. 6 gates were at the rising, and 6 at the setting of the sun, respectively, one after another are on a level, and numerous windows are on the right and left sides of those gates. First proceeds forth that great luminary which is called the sun, the orb of which is as the orb of heaven, the whole of it being replete with splendid and flaming fire. Its chariot, where it ascends, the wind blows. The sun sets in heaven, and by returning to the north, to proceed toward the east, it is conducted so as to enter by that gate and illuminate the face of heaven. In the same manner it goes forth in the first month by a great gate. It goes forth through the fourth of those 6 gates, which are at the rising of the sun. And in the 4th gate, through which the sun and the moon proceeds, in the first part of it there are 12 open windows, from which issues out a flame when they are opened at the proper periods. When the sun rises in heaven, it goes forth through this 4th gate 30 days, and by the 4th gate in the west of heaven on the level with it descends. During that period the day is lengthened from the day, and the night is curtailed from the night for 30 days. And then the day is longer by 2 parts than the night. The day is precisely 10 parts, and the night is 8. The sun goes forth through its 4th gate and sets in it, and turns to the 5th gate during 30 days, after which it proceeds from and sets in the 5th gate. Then the day becomes lengthened by a second portion, so that it is 11 parts, while the night becomes shortened and is only 7 parts. Now the sun returns to the east, entering into the 6th gate, and rising and setting in the 6th gate 31 days, on account of only 7 parts. Now the sun returns to the east, entering the 6th gate, and rising and setting in the 6th gate 31 days, on account of its signs. At that period the day is longer than the night, being twice as long as the night, and becomes 12 parts. But the night is shortened and becomes 6 parts. Then the sun rises up that it may be shortened, and the night lengthened. And the sun returns toward the east, entering into the 6th gate, where it rises and sets for 30 days. When that period is completed, the day becomes shortened precisely 1 part, so that it is 11 parts, while the night is 7 parts. Then the sun goes from the west, from that 6th gate, proceeding eastward, rising in the 5th gate for 30 days, and setting again westward in the 5th gate of the west. At that period the day becomes shortened 2 parts, and is 10 parts, while the night is 8 parts. Then the sun goes from the 5th gate as it sets in the 5th gate of the west, and rises in the 4th gate for 31 days, on account of its signs setting in the west. At that period the day is made equal with the night, and being equal with it, the night becomes 9 parts, and the day becomes 9 parts. Then the sun goes from that gate as it sets to the west, and returns to the east, proceeding by the 3rd gate for 30 days, setting in the west at the 3rd gate. At that period the night is lengthened from the day during 30 mornings, and the day is curtailed from the day during 30 days, the night being 10 parts precisely, and the day 8 parts. Now the sun goes from the 3rd gate, and it is set in the 3rd gate in the west, but returns to the east. It proceeds by the 2nd gate of the east for 30 days. In like manner it also sets in the 2nd gate in the west of heaven. At that period the night is 11 parts, and the day 7 parts. Then the sun goes at that time from the 2nd gate as it sets in the 2nd gate in the west, but returns to the east, proceeding by the 1st gate for 31 days, and sets in the west for 30 in the 1st gate. At that period the night is lengthened as much as again as the day. It is 12 parts precisely, while the day is 6 parts. The sun has thus completed its beginnings, and a second time goes around from these beginnings. Into that gate it enters for 30 days, and sets in the west, in the opposite part of heaven. At that period the night is contracted in length for a 4th part, that is 1 portion, and it becomes 11 parts. The day is 7 parts. Then the sun returns and enters into the 2nd gate of the east. It returns by these beginnings 30 days, rising and setting. At that period the night is contracted in its length, it becomes 10 parts, and the day becomes 8 parts. Then the sun goes from that gate and sets in the west, but returns to the east, and rises in the east in the 3rd gate 31 days, setting in the west of heaven. At that period the night becomes shortened, and is become 9 parts. The night is equal to the day. The year is precisely 364 days. The lengthening of the day and night and the contraction of the day and night are made to differ from each other by the progress of the sun. By means of this progress, the day is lengthened and the night is greatly shortened. This is the law and the progress of the sun. Its turning when it turns back, turning during 60 days and going forth. This is the great everlasting luminary, that which he names the sun forever and ever. This also is that which goes forth, a great luminary, which is named after its peculiar kind, as Yah commanded. And thus it goes in and out, neither slackening nor resting, but running on its chariot by day and night. It shines with a seventh portion of the light of the moon, but the dimensions of both are equal. So first off, this says the sun and the moon are the exact same size. When we look at them in the sky, they have the exact same angular size. Next, the sun travels between the tropics as it goes through the sixth gate. The fourth gate would be at the equator. The next two chapters deal with the moon and how the phases work in its path. After this, I beheld another law of an inferior luminary, the name of which is the moon, and the orb of which is as the orb of heaven. Its chariot, which it secretly ascends, the wind blows, and light is given to it by measure. Every month at its exit and entrance it becomes changed, and the periods are as the periods of the sun. And when in like manner its light is to exist, its light is seventh portion from the light of the sun. Thus it rises, and as it commencement towards the east goes forth for 30 days. At that time it appears and becomes to you the beginning of the month. That's the waxing crescent, the first day of the month. 30 days it is with the sun in the gate from which the sun goes forth. Half of it is in extent 7 portions, 1/2, and as the whole of its orb is void of light except for the 7th portion out of the 14th portion of its light, and in a day it receives the 7th portion, or half that portion of its light. Its light is by sevens, by 1 portion and by the half of a portion it sets with the sun. And when the sun rises, the moon rises with it, receiving a half portion of light. On that night, when it commences its period, previously to the day of each month, the moon sets with the sun. On that night it is dark with it in its 14 proportions, that is, in each half, but it rises on that day with 1/7 proportion precisely, and its progress declines from the rising of the sun. During the remainder of its period, its light increases to 14 portions. Then I saw another progress and regulation which he effected in the law of the moon, the progress of its moons and everything related to them. Uriel showed me the holy angel who conducted them all. Their stations I wrote down as he showed them to me. I wrote down their months as they occur, and the appearance of their light until it is completed in 15 days. In each of the 7 portions it completes all its light at rising and setting. On stated months it changes its settings, and on stated months it makes its progress through each gate. In 2 gates the moon sets with the sun, in those 2 gates which are in the midst of the 3rd and 4th gate. And from the 3rd gate it goes forth for 7 days and makes its circuit. Again it returns to the gate whence the sun goes forth and completes the whole of its light. Then it declines from the sun and enters in 8 days into the 6th gate and returns 7 days into the 3rd gate, from which the sun goes forth. When the sun proceeds to the 4th gate, the moon goes forth for 7 days, until it passes from the 5th gate. Again it returns in 7 days to the 4th gate, and completing all its light declines and passes by the 1st gate in 8 days, and returns in 7 days to the 4th gate, from which the sun goes forth. Thus I beheld their stations, as according to the fixed order of the months the sun rises and sets. At those times there is an excess of 30 days belonging to the sun in 5 years. All the days belonging to each year of the 5 years when completed amount to 364 days. And to the sun and stars belong 6 days, 6 days in each of the 5 years, thus in 30 days belonging to them, so that the moon has 30 days less than the sun and stars. The moon brings on all the years exactly, that their stations may come neither forwards nor too backwards in a single day, but that the years may be changed with correct precision in 364 days. In 3 years the days are 1,092, in 5 years they are 1,820, and in 8 years 2,912 days. To the moon alone belong 3 years, 1,062 days. In 5 years it has 50 days less than the sun, in addition to being made to the 1,062 days. In 5 years there are 1,770 days. And in the days of the moon their 8 years are 2,832 days. For its days in its 8 years are less than those of the sun by 80 days, which 80 days are its diminution in 8 years. The year then becomes truly complete according to the stations of the moon and the stations of the sun, which rise in different gates, which rise and set in them for 30 days. Chapter 77 adds even more detail. The names of the sun are these: one Arayares, and the other Tomas. The moon has 4 names. The first is Asonia, the second Ebla, the third Benassi, and the fourth Ariae. These are the two great luminaries whose orbs are as the orbs of heaven, and the dimensions of both are equal. Once again, it's telling us they're both the same size. In the orb of the sun, there is a 7th portion of light, which is added to it from the moon. By measure, it is put in until a 7th portion of light of the sun is departed. They enter into the western gate by the circuit of the north, and through the eastern gate go forth over the face of heaven. When the moon rises, it appears in heaven, and the half of the 7th portion of light is all which is in it. In 14 days is the whole of its light completed. By 3 quintuples light is put into it, until 15 days of its light is completed. According to the signs of the year, it has 3 quintuples. The moon has half of the 7th portion. During its diminution, on the first day its light decreases a 14th part, and on the second day it decreases a 13th part. On the third day a 12th part, on the 4th day a 11th part, on the 5th day a 10th part, on the 6th day a 9th part, on the 7th day it decreases an 8th part, on the 8th day it decreases a 7th part, on the 9th day a 6th part, on the 10th day it decreases a 5th part, on the 11th day a 4th part, on the 12th day it decreases the 3rd part, on the 13th day it decreases a 2nd part, on the 14th day it decreases half of a 7th part, and on the 15th day the whole remainder of its light is consumed. On stated months, the moon has 29 days. It also has a period of 28 days. Uriel likewise showed me another regulation when light is poured into the moon, how it is poured into it from the sun. All the time that the moon is in progress with its light, it is poured into it by the presence of the sun, until its light is 14 days complete in heaven. When it is wholly extinguished, its light is consumed in heaven, and on the first day it is called the new moon, for on that day light is received into it. It becomes precisely completed on the day that the sun descends into the west, while the moon ascends at night from the east. The moon shines all the night until the sun rises before it, when the moon disappears in turn before the sun. Where the light comes to the moon, there again it decreases until all its light is extinguished, and the days of the moon pass away. Then its orb remains solitary without light. During 3 months it affects it in 30 days, each month its period, and during 3 more months it affects it in 29 days each. These are the times in which it affects its decrease in its first period and in its first gate, namely in 177 days. And at that time of its going forth, during 3 months it appears 30 days each, and during 3 more months it appears 29 days each. In the night it appears for each 20 days as the face of a man, and in the day as heaven, for nothing else except its light. Chapter 81 goes into even more detail about the angels, and how they conduct and watch the stars, and even names them. As you can see, there's a lot of detail in the Book of Enoch regarding the sun, moon, and stars. But the book not only tells us how everything works, but it's also backed up by the Bible in terms of cosmology and other topics such as watchers and prophecy. Biblical cosmology, or flat earth, is not a fad or distraction. It is a real thing. It's backed up by tons of evidence, scientific research, but more importantly, it's backed up by Scripture. The deceptions of the globe and heliocentrism attempt to discredit Yah and his perfect creation, which is scientifically provable. But his word and truth will always win out. If you enjoyed this teaching, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Shalom.